Hello, I'm Olin Schultz, president of Morebeer, and I'm here today with my friend Will Harrison of Hopunion. Will, how you doing?
Great.
Great, and we've came up today to check out this amazing pilot brewery that you guys have put together, which we've been working back and forth many times over the last year on.
Yeah, it's been quite a project.
So this is my first trip up to see it, and I'm pretty impressed, let me say. Maybe we could just walk through a couple of the features of why you chose the brew sculpture and what you like about it.
Okay.
When you were setting up to do it, what made you think of the brew sculpture?
Well, originally, 8 years ago, I started homebrewing with the original Morebeer structure, the 1500.
Okay.
And I built it with plans from Regan and with the local welder when I lived in Eugene, and was fascinated with pumps and temperature control, which at that point was just a floating thermometer, but it was all so exciting to me. And after 8 years of homebrewing, when I came to work here, Hopunion wanted to install a pilot brew house, and I was like, I know exactly who to call. The original idea was to put in like a 10-barrel brew house here, but then when they figured out how much it was going to cost, it made more sense to spend a lot less money and do more of a research facility. So we decided to go with Morebeer, which was my idea, and
we love you for it.
Yeah. So we decided on this system. The main reason I wanted to go with this one over the tippy dump or the taller structure system is that it's all in the same field, and you've got two pumps. After brewing on ladders and step stools for years, I felt that this would be a lot easier to train people on, a lot safer for people who don't know anything about brewing, because we have a lot of staff here who's all they know are they sell hops. They don't really know what they're used for.
Yeah.
So this was a lot easier to deal with. I like that the two pumps allow for flow control, whereas before it was me with a pitcher on a ladder dumping it in.
Well, and you also brewed at a commercial brewery.
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah, so this is like a scaled down commercial brewery. It works. This system is well designed. It works perfectly in my opinion, and it's very easy to reproduce beers on this system and train. And luckily for us, we have a lab across the street that does beer analysis, so we do a lot of testing and verifying over there. And the last beer I made was supposed to be 9.1% alcohol with 72 IBUs, and it was 9.1% alcohol with 72 IBUs.
Awesome.
So
yeah. We wish that we had a lab at Morebeer so we could be testing our beers like that.
Yeah, it's a good, we're spoiled around here. That's the way my boss puts it. So.
Now, what's the recipe you're making here today, Will?
This is IPA that we're going to be brewing with some Australian hop varieties, and this grain bill is a 90% two-row. We use Washington Select since we are in Washington State. It's a grain from Great Northwestern, and then I use 5% Crystal or 40 and 5% Munich malt from Best Malts. And a pretty simple grain bill, trying to let the hops be the showcase of this beer. And they're varieties that we've never carried here at Hopunion. So we're doing a lot of these brews to kind of showcase new hops to see if it's something we want to buy and help kind of get out into the IPA market, since there's such a hard time for breweries getting hops like Simcoe and Amarillo, Centennial.
Now, when does the Australian hop crop come ripe?
They're actually going to be harvesting at the end of next month. And
so the end of February is
end of February, early March, yeah. And then that's when we don't actually start receiving them in until summertime. It takes a while for them to process them and get them here. It's kind of the same thing with German varieties. Even though they harvest them in September, it takes us until about this time of the year to get them from Germany. It just takes forever to get them across the ocean and through customs, and so.
Now, we had a good response to Galaxy. What was the overall response to that?
Yeah, Galaxy, as soon as we brought Galaxy in, we sold out in like 2 days.
Yeah.
And we're actually already sold out until 2013. So we're having to try to source more varieties to kind of make up for, there's a lot of complexity with the hops that come from down under, I think. And so we're trying to bring different varieties in to kind of get, people just love Galaxy. I did too. I made a beer here with it too, and people came for the hop and brew school and were just like, oh, Galaxy, I want it. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry, you can't get it. Probably a bad idea to showcase a hop that no one can get.
Well, that's the situation with quite a few hops now, right?
Yeah, it is. And we do a lot of brewing with experimental varieties. We did a pale ale, which is actually on tap, using HBC 342, which is out of the hop breeding program here in town. And it's one that Hopunion actually carries. We're selling this year. So it's kind of exciting to...
Will that get a trade name, or will that keep...
It will. Yeah, it's kind of in its like first stages of commercial development. So there's actually acreage out there, but they haven't named it yet. I think, you know, there's a couple hops ahead of it that are going to get named first. We have a new program here at Hopunion called X Hops, which is kind of showcasing hops from the breeding program, and it's kind of like the first stages of getting them out into getting commercial feedback without the guys at the breeding program having to do all the legwork of getting brewers' interests and stuff. So,
who ultimately decides on the name of a hop?
You know, I'm not sure, actually.
Is that the grower who's growing it on
probably,
his side?
Yeah, it's probably the grower, and you know, I'm sure some brewers have some say so, depending on how much involvement they've had with, kind of like how Vinny at Russian River uses the hop 369 and Happy Hops. It's a beer that they showcased at the homebrew convention in San Diego this last year.
Okay.
I'm sure Vinny will have something to do with maybe naming that hop, but I can't say for sure. So.
I think just Vinny's hop would sell it alone,
Yeah,
right?
Vinny's hop. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting. There's a lot of demand now with breeding programs around the world to get more and more aromatic varieties out into the marketplace. So I think we're going to see more and more hops with numbers, and then eventually with names. So, oh man, we are right on temp. That's great.
We're doing in nice and slow, so I know you're not getting any dough balls in here.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I used to actually dough in a lot faster, and I could still eliminate a lot of the dough balls by just moving the paddle around, but I realized that my temperature was really inconsistent because the one dough ball that would collect would be right down here where the temperature gauge and the boat temperature gauge unions come in, and some stuff would get stuck in there, and it'd say it was like 130 degrees or 190 degrees, and I would just like freak out. That's why I had you grab the ice, but
well,
I don't think we're gonna need it today.
That's one thing that we'll find is that you have to stir for 3 to 4, even maybe 5 minutes after you dough in to get a really accurate temperature reading on the mash tun on the brew sculpture. All right, that's it.
Yeah, it looks great. Yeah, and I was shooting for 151. I usually do my IPAs with a lot higher of a mash temp, but
just for more maltiness.
Yeah, but lately it's almost been like too malty. And when Jeff Bagby was up here for Hop and Brew School, he was talking about how all his Alpha King beers that when he mashes at 148 to 149, believe it or not, I think that's pretty low. So I'm kind of going with the happy medium of like 151, 150. Seems to be doing pretty well.
Sure.
I don't know, 148 sounds too dry for me, but he's won 2 consecutive years in a row with the same beer, so
at what contest?
Every year at the Great American Beer Festival, we showcase the Alpha King Challenge, along with 3 Floyds Brewing Company, and it's basically the hoppiest beer in the country contest. And Jeff Bagby's won 3 times, I think, in the last 5 years, and he's won the last 2 years in a row with Poor Man's IPA, double IPA.
I wonder if there's something to the fact that when it gets that hoppy and that bitter, you don't really want that extra maltiness because it interferes with the hop a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's more letting the hops shine.
Yeah.
So I think
I could see a real light 148, 149 makes sense when you're going for that.
Yeah, and we're at 150 and a half, 151. So I think that's killer.
Great.